1983 was a good year. Metallica released their first album, Return of the Jedi, War Games, Krull, Sudden Impact, Trading Places, and A Christmas Story were all in theaters. And the epic miniseries V was making its TV debut. That year also introduced one of the greatest toys of all time, the Wacky Wall Walker. 1983 was also the year we were introduced to a cartoon series that changed the scope of children's programming and was a massive pop culture hit that's still popular today, nearly 30 years later. And that show was...
And the Masters of the Universe!
This was a groundbreaking animated series that was the first ever to be based on a toy and changed the face of marketing in the 80s. If not for the success of Masters of the Universe, we may have never seen the likes of the Transformers, Mask, and the updated G.I. Joe.
Who wants a body massage?
With the incredible popularity of the cartoon, it wasn't long before Hollywood was looking to adapt this into a major motion picture. So in 1987, 4 years after the launch of the cartoon, we got the movie Masters of the Universe. Masters of the Universe was directed by Gary Goddard and starred the awesome Dolph Lundgren. The movie opens with an intro that's a little bit too similar to the intro for Richard Donner's Superman. Even the music is pretty much the same. Castle Grayskull is a neutral point at the center of the universe, and along with the Sorceress, she helps to keep the balance between good and evil. On the planet of Eternia, the evil Skeletor is doing his best Darth Vader impersonation. Skeletor is overtaking Castle Grayskull, and he's kidnapped the Sorceress so he can shift the balance of the universe to evil. At this point, we're introduced to our hero, the badass and slightly homoerotic He-Man, along with his friends Teela and Man-at-Arms. They fight off some of Skeletor's troops and rescue Gwildor. For some reason, they created the character of Gwildor to replace Orko. I guess they had a problem figuring out how to have a character without legs. Gwildor takes them back to his place to show them why Skeletor was after him. He built a device called the Cosmic Key that can open a portal to anywhere. Gwildor says he was tricked by a woman named Evelyn, and she took the key and gave it to Skeletor. I think it's safe to say if you meet someone whose name is Evelyn, chances are that she is fucking evil. Gwildor thankfully still has a prototype that Skeletor doesn't know about. My god, Teela's bipolar.
Can open a doorway to anywhere.
You little worm.
I'm sorry.
You got us here, you Thanurian Wurabat. Now you get us home.
Calm down.
The group sneaks into Grayskull to rescue the Sorceress, but gets ambushed by Skeletor and his troops. Gwildor uses the key to open a portal, naturally to Earth. Is this where they got the idea for sliders? So they land on Earth and run into one of its inhabitants.
Alien life form. Big.
Let me blast.
Wait. It might be intelligent life.
By the Sorceress, it's ugly.
It seems harmless.
What a hideous cry.
When they landed on Earth, they lost the Cosmic Key, so they split up to find it. The girl from the Dancing in the Dark video is on her last day working at the Rib Shack. She's dumping her boyfriend and moving to New Jersey. Wait, what? That's something you don't hear very often. She's leaving California to start a new life in New Jersey. Before she leaves, she wants to go visit her parents' grave, so she gets her boyfriend Tom Paris to drive her there. She's moving because they died in a plane crash a few months ago.
So, what time's your bus to the airport?
Wait, her parents just died in a plane crash, and she's taking a plane to New Jersey? Gwildor steals some food and shares it with Man-at-Arms and Teela.
I wonder why they put the food on these little white sticks.
Those are rib bones.
You mean this used to be an animal?
Mm-hmm.
Since when are the people from Eternia vegetarians? In an episode of the cartoon, the king is having a feast, and Orko clones himself so he can eat more chicken. So Kevin finds the Cosmic Key and thinks it's a synthesizer. He starts to mess with it and gets some pretty sweet sounds out of it. Since Kevin is using the key, Skeletor can now track their location. I didn't know Skeletor invented Google Earth. Evelyn brings in some mercenaries to send to Earth. When I saw this as a kid, I was super excited because I couldn't wait to see what characters they were going to have from the cartoon. They already had Skeletor, Evelyn, He-Man, Man-at-Arms, and Teela, Who next? Oh shit, Beastman. And this guy. And this guy. And Richard Lynch? So instead of Orko, we get Gwildor. And instead of, say, Trapjaw, Triclops, and Stinkor, we get Sarod, Karg, and the most generic name ever, Blade. In a series known for its clever names like Buzz-Off and Merman and Mossman and Ramman and... Alright, maybe they're not so clever. Kevin and Julie are hanging out at the local high school. He takes the key to a music store and Julie stays behind. The mercenaries head to Earth and find Julie by herself. 4 of Skeletor's best mercenaries can't catch one teenage girl? Julie escapes and He-Man rescues her. Kevin goes back to the high school to see it practically burnt down. He gets questioned by Detective Lubick, who takes him to Julie's house. The mercenaries report their failure to Skeletor, and he kills Lizard, or whatever the hell his name is. That's still not as bad as what he does with Beastman.
Let me tell the truth. Now, who are you? I don't know. Let's break it through. Now, shake your ass. Come on, Beastman. Take your furry fur off. Why can't it made of fur? Bitch, well then, whack me off.
Evelyn takes the remaining mercenaries back to Earth along with some troops. Back at Julie's house, Lubbock is messing with the key. He takes it as evidence. The mercenaries show up and kick the shit out of Kevin, and he tells them where the key is. He-Man shows up and they take Kevin to the music store to find Lubick with the key. Gwildor's a drag queen. I'm not surprised. Evelyn and the troops are closing in on the group, so they set up to fight them off. Julie hears a noise outside and goes to see it's her dead mother. Okay, how stupid is she? She takes the key and gives it to her dead mother, and naturally it's Evelyn. Evelyn opens a portal and lets Skeletor and his troops through. He-Man fights Skeletor, and in the process one of the keys is damaged. Skeletor then takes He-Man back to Eternia and leaves the others behind. The key's damaged, so the group can't get to Eternia. They need the tone that opens the portal, and thankfully Kevin remembers it. Okay, if this is the tone that they need... Why is it that every time they open a portal, Gwildor does this?
Rabbitonic toes.
They're coming.
Can that thing get us out of here?
It's not even close. Skeletor is whipping He-Man and trying to get him to submit to him.
I want to hear you say your name. Your name is Toby.
He takes He-Man's sword and uses it to absorb the power of Grayskull and becomes the giant gold Skeletor. You know, when I think evil, I don't think giant golden guy. Kevin goes to the music store to get a keyboard. They use it with the key to open a portal to Eternia. Lubick sneaks up and he gets sucked into the portal. They land right in Grayskull and interrupt Skeletor's power trip. The group fights Skeletor's troops and even Lubick helps out. He-Man gets his sword back, and hell yeah. The two fight and He-Man breaks Skeletor's staff, returning him to normal Skeletor. Skeletor then trips and falls into the abyss. Gwildor then sends Kevin and Julie back to Earth. Julie wakes up wearing her grandmother's nightie for some reason and realizes it's a year in the past and her parents are still alive. She stops them from getting on the plane so they don't get killed. What I want to know is, does she even bother to try and warn anyone else? She could have saved a few more lives, you know. Julie and Kevin then look at the marble thing that the sorceress gave them and see He-Man giving his catchphrase. A pretty kick-ass way to end the movie. And in a nice little stinger at the end of the credits, Skeletor pops up.
I'll be back.
The original budget for the film was about $17 million, but after a while they went way over budget, and in the end the movie ended up costing about $22 million, which was Cannon's most expensive film ever. There was no second unit, which was very unusual for a movie this size. With most movies, the lead director films the essential stuff, and the second unit films all the pickup shots and little things. In this case, Gary Goddard directed everything. Cannon pulled the plug on the film before they were able to shoot the final climactic moments of He-Man and Skeletor. Finally, after 2 months of pleading, the studio allowed Goddard to go back and shoot this sequence so they could finish the film. I did goof on the intro music for having a little bit too much of a Superman vibe, but I can't badmouth the score by Bill Conti. This guy is an incredible composer, and not only did the score for The Karate Kid and The Right Stuff, but was the composer of the legendary score for Rocky. This was Courtney Cox's first movie, and in an odd coincidence, the sorceress played by Christina Pickles would go on to play Courtney Cox's mother in the popular sitcom Friends. To save some money, they used Walter Scott, the movie's stunt coordinator, to play Julie's father. The interior for Castle Grayskull was so big that they had to take 2 sound stages and combine them in order to fit it all. It was one of the largest sets of all time. In the high school scene, the band The Illusion was the name of director Gary Goddard's high school band. When they set the gym on fire, it quickly got out of control and they almost burned the school down. As much as I shredded this movie, I really enjoy it. Frank Langella was an excellent Skeletor, and I can't think of a better actor than Dolph Lundgren to play the role of He-Man. There were a few things that bugged me though. Even though He-Man does say, "I have the power," I was a little bit bummed that he didn't start it off with,
"By the power of Grayskull."
The sorceress's outfit wasn't even close. I mean, what's up with the rock candy on her head? Teela being a brunette and not a redhead was a little bit of a bummer, but it was more so because I would have liked to have seen Chelsea Field with red hair. The big one, though, was the inclusion of the new characters. I understood why they had to do Gwildor instead of Orko, but I couldn't understand the new villains. In an interview, Goddard spoke out about the new villains, saying how Mattel had to sign off on everything they did. They wanted them to create some new characters so they could make some new toys. Also, since one of the mercenaries gets killed, they wanted it to be somebody that wasn't on the cartoon. However, since the movie wasn't as big of a hit as they had hoped, they only ended up making Blade, Gwildor, and Sauron action figures. Mattel held a contest for a Masters of the Universe fan to be in the movie. Originally, the winner was going to be in a scene on Earth, but by the time Mattel informed Goddard that they had to put this kid in the movie, they already filmed all the Earth scenes. So the winner was a kid named Richard Sponder. They put him in a costume and had him hand Skeletor his staff towards the end of the film. He's on screen for about 3 seconds and is credited as Pig Boy. Excellent low-budget director Albert Pyun started working on a sequel in 1988. Dolph Lundgren was offered the chance to return for the role, but he turned it down and they cast surfer Laird Hamilton to replace him. In a 1989 interview, Lundgren said that playing He-Man was a low point in his career. Although more recently in an interview for The Expendables, he stated that he would very much like to reprise his role or have a cameo in the new Masters of the Universe movie. The sequel to Masters of the Universe was well underway. The script had He-Man returning to Earth after Skeletor had taken over and turned it into a post-apocalyptic wasteland. They had already built the sets and costumes when Mattel had pulled out of the production. Pyun, not wanting to let all this production go to waste, quickly rewrote the script and turned Masters of the Universe into, of all things, the Jean-Claude Van Damme cult classic, Cyborg. I find it interesting that Masters of the Universe still has no sequel, but Cyborg has 2. They've been trying to do a reboot of Masters of the Universe for a while now. My only hope is that if they do a reboot, that they keep it on Eternia. There's plenty they could do now with CGI that they couldn't do back in the 80s and stay under budget. If they go back to Earth, it's going to be just another fish-out-of-water movie. I mean, there's no reason to do another gigantic blonde from another world battling bad guys on Earth. We've already had Suburban Commando.